Some of what I'm about to share is going to sound a little bit ruthless. Now, I'm going to be calling some people out, and you may be in the category of people that I'm calling out. And if that's you, I'm saying it with love. One of the key lessons you need to master as you scale from 200K to 2 million plus is the ability to build your team without going broke. Now, this is especially true inside a service business, because if you run a service business, and this includes like a coaching business, a consulting business, or service delivery, the key in those types of businesses is you need to have great, highly skilled staff. And great, highly skilled staff are often expensive. Meanwhile, you probably can't work much harder than you are already working, and you need help. So what do? You have expensive staff members on one side. You have the fact that you can't work more than you're already working on the other side. What do? How do I generate an ROI from my team so that a new hire doesn't cost me money, but actually makes me money? This is absolutely key. And if you have struggled to make payroll more than once in the last year, this episode will be incredibly useful to you. I'm going to share 5 fundamental rules on growing your team without going broke. Now, something I want to forewarn you about. Some of what I'm about to share is going to sound a little bit ruthless to you. And I think that's because we hear much more frequently all the different soft skills that we need in order to be a good leader, to develop empathy, to listen, to really understand the goals, motivations, and working styles of our team. And all of those things are absolutely critically important. But as an entrepreneurial leader, as a leader inside a woman-owned business, if you cannot combine those soft skills with your ability to derive profit from every single employee that you take on, you are running a charity, not a business. And you won't be in business for very long. As a Jewel CEO, you have a responsibility to your core stakeholder, and your core stakeholder is your company. As our guest last week, Amanda Tress, shared, you as a CEO need to constantly be evaluating your decisions and asking yourself, what is the highest and best good for my company in this moment? If you cannot do that, you should be the one fired for failure to perform. But that's not going to happen. And so what happens instead is that you end up being a shitty manager and draining your company of profits while you figure out how to stop being a people pleaser. Now, sounds harsh. Maybe you can relate to some of what I'm sharing, but this episode will give you some practical, actionable steps that you can put in place to make sure that doesn't happen, to give you some guidelines so that you are able to manage being empathetic, being compassionate, being a great person to work for, with making sure that you are building a profitable and lucrative business. Because ultimately, the best security for any of your team is your ability to build a profitable and lucrative business. So I'm going to go through the 5 fundamental rules for building a team without going broke here right away, and then I will dive into them more deeply throughout the course of the episode. Rule number 1, never ever inflate job titles. Rule number 2, map an ROI plan for each employee you take on. Number 3, hire cougars, not house cats. Number 4, calculate your labor efficiency ratio and monitor it monthly. And number 5, fire fast. Okay, let's dive in. Rule number 1 to building a team without going broke is never inflate job titles. Now, I'm going to be calling some people out, and you may be in the category of people that I'm calling out. And if that's you, I'm saying it with love. Okay, this is a perspective I'm offering with love. I see a lot of companies that are doing under $2 million who have fewer, they in some cases, they may have 1 or 2 full-time employees, and one of those employees is a chief operating officer, and the other is a chief financial officer. And what I would like to say is that under 5 million in revenue, there is really no C-suite is necessary. You really don't need a chief anything. Maybe a CEO. That's fair. You need a CEO, but that's pretty much it. Under 5 million, your company really is not big enough to have a chief anything, to be quite frank. And the reason that this is important is because of the precedent that you set up. You are asking to overpay people when you are running a business under $5 million and you have all these chief X officers or directors of this, that, or the other thing. You know, somebody starts and they're immediately promoted to a director of something or other. And the challenge with that, you may be trying to sort of elevate people and make sure that they have a title that matches the level of respect that you have for them. And that's what I see very often. But the reality is you are setting the wrong precedent. So number one, you are going to attract people who are maybe higher level and your business just can't afford them, right? Or they're bringing skill sets that your company does not need. Or the other thing that can happen is that the higher the title, the more likely you are to attract people who would like to manage people who do the work versus do the work themselves. And which is not to say that, you know, don't hire somebody who has great experience managing people, but in a small, growing woman-owned company, in a company that's doing under 5 million a year, you must have people who can row the boat with you, not just steer it, okay? I think about Perplexity, the sort of AI chat GPT competitor. They bring in $4 million per employee, okay? And one of their core things is they avoid hiring people whose key experience has been managing other people, because they know in order to drive results in an entrepreneurial company, you have to have people who know how to produce. So this idea, when you look at your company and you're hiring a chief operating officer and a chief marketing officer and a chief financial officer and a chief HR officer, and you are doing under 5 million, and I see a lot of people doing this under $1 million, under 500,000, you are asking to overpay, and you are also creating a situation where you're going to attract people who feel by virtue of their title that they shouldn't be doing the work, they should be leading and managing the work. And that is a big no-no inside an entrepreneurial company. You are going to grow broke if you do that. So rule number one, to build a team without growing broke or going broke, is to avoid title inflation at all costs. And to put it into perspective, sometimes people will go out to market for a chief of staff when what they really need is an executive assistant. And the difference in salary expectations between those two things could be the difference between a chief of staff who might go for 125K and an executive assistant who would be more in the 60K range. Okay. So that delta, that difference of $75,000 is money that is going out to an employee that your business actually really needs in order to stay afloat and be profitable and be secure and allow you to invest in growth. So this is why we don't inflate titles. All right. Rule number 2, map out an ROI plan for each employee. And to recap, ROI means return on investment. So this does not need to be detailed. It does not need to be technical. But as you are building your team, it is critical that you are clear and they are clear on how each and every person you bring into your organization will help you drive up profit. So for instance, I'm thinking about a recent hire that I made, which was an executive assistant. And the way in which that executive assistant helps us drive up profit is that she takes on administrative tasks that I would otherwise be doing, sort of administrative and organizational tasks. And this allows me to do two things. Number one, it allows me to free up time to do more of the revenue generating and growth driving activities I already am supposed to be doing, but haven't had the time to do. And it also allows me to do new growth oriented and revenue generating activities that I have not been able to do because I was stuck doing other things. Okay. So making that higher, the ROI plan has a lot to do with what she is able to take off my plate so that I can do more of the revenue generating tasks that already exist in the business. And also that ability to free me up so I can take on some new projects that we have not been able to do because I've been stuck in details around other things. So that's an example. When you bring in a job like that, you're very clear. Here's how this person drives ROI for the business. If you were to hire a salesperson, then in that role, you would be very clear. This person helps us drive ROI by uncovering and generating this many qualified prospects per week, which lead to this many new customers per month. Okay, that's the level of detail that you want. But the first thing is just to really understand sort of, thematically how they're going to help you drive results. And then you start to get a little bit more detailed in terms of what a success plan would look like for them. But when you're starting to map an ROI plan for each employee, I sort of think about employees in these groups, and people can move between these groups and they might be a little bit in one group or another group, but I find this very helpful. I think about doers, hunters, and enablers. So a doer is a person who delivers the service or delivers support around the product. So these people are usually the doers. So if you are an HR consultant, it's somebody who's doing some of that HR consulting. If you own a social media agency, it's people who are delivering that social media service. It could be copywriters, it could be, content creators, it could be video editors. So those are doers. And what they do is they deliver the service that you sell. Okay, so that's one category. I will say that a big thing that I see here, especially for those of you who have, consulting or coaching-based companies, one mistake I see you make is that you will hire contract doers and you will pay them their advertised rate. So let's say that you have an executive coaching company and you are outsourcing to other executive coaches. You are paying them what they would charge to clients coming in through their own marketing efforts. Do not do that. All right. Do not do that, because what's happening is you are bringing them contracts where they have to do zero marketing to get paid, which means that rate should be less. So this is something that I see all the time, and this should probably be a whole other episode. But do not pay people their sort of their posted rates. If you're contracting with another small business owner, don't do that, because that rate that they are charging includes all of the marketing, admin, just all these additional costs that a business owner has to pay and is responsible for, that when they take on a subcontract from you, they are no longer responsible for. And if you are in situations where people don't want to move, then you probably need to find new subcontractors. Again, this is a whole other conversation, but it's something I run into all the time with our clients. Okay, so that's doers. Other categories of doers would be things like customer success, customer service. Okay, so these are people who are delivering the thing that you sell. And obviously their ROI, they get ROI by taking that delivery work off your plate. So it's a very clear ROI. Now, when that happens, in order to continue being profitable, does this mean you just go on vacation for 6 weeks? No, not if you want to be profitable. This means that you take that time that you were spending in delivery and you now redeploy it to another area of the business that's going to help you drive top line growth, i.e. sales and marketing or partnerships, or help you drive profits. So really going through the business, maybe you use that time to refocus on cost cutting measures to be more profitable, etc. Okay, so that's doers. The next category of team member is a hunter. And so a hunter is a person who basically brings in leads, sales, or business opportunities. This is business development people, sales people, marketing people. They are hunting down new opportunity. So this is another category. And again, with these types of folks, it's very clear. You hire them, and if they are not bringing in business opportunity for you, then they're not going to help you be more profitable, right? So that's the way that you look at that. One cautionary thing that I would sort of offer here is that I am a sales and marketing person. I know a lot of sales and marketing people, so I say this with love and respect. But one thing you need to really watch for as you're building out this side of your team is that these folks are generally probably much like you who are listening. These folks are often very good at selling themselves. And what you want to make sure is that that actually translates into selling the thing that they're here to sell. Okay? And we need to equip them with clear offers, with, clear marketing channels, et cetera, et cetera. But that's, again, one sort of mistake that I see. So I see a lot of entrepreneurs who will overpay salespeople and business development people. They think of it like, they might hire someone. Oh, this person was a top sales ace for Xerox. Well, guess what? Xerox is a much different beast than your small business. And your small business is going to be paying a salesperson this much, and they get to choose if they want to take that or not. So I do see a lot of overpayment when it comes to contract salespeople. I've certainly run into this in the past. And so there's ways to kind of manage for this. And again, I'm going to be clear, everybody has the right, and bully for you, to really advocate top dollar for yourself. But you as a CEO need to make sure that you are watching highest and best good for the company. And so this is one place where you really want to make sure that you're not overpaying in this role, especially if you're not getting the results that you want. Okay, so that's the doers. Now let's talk about the enablers. So these are people who enable either hunters to hunt more or doers to process more work, and therefore it allows you to bill even more. So an enabler might be a project manager inside your company who manages workflows, coordinates, client journeys, makes sure billing is going out, et cetera, et cetera. So they basically make sure that they support the hunters and doers in your business to do what they do faster. This allows faster throughput. It allows your company greater capacity. And so this is how you drive up profit through that role. So those are the different categories of roles: doers, hunters, and enablers. And the core way that you grow your team without going broke is to have a clear idea first in your head in a general sense. How does this hire help my company be more profitable? And then from there, you can drill down to start being more detailed. In our company, we have something for our team called Win the Day, Win the Week, Win the Month. And what that means is that we have taken pains to be very clear. What does this team member need to do in order to know that they've won the week, won the day, won the week, won the month? And so it becomes very clear. Did you win or did you lose? And we don't expect people to win every single day. Sometimes they do, but it just helps. Like, we need a score. We need to know, hey, am I driving results here? And so that could be something that would be useful for you to develop. All right. Rule number 3 to build your team without going broke is to hire cougars, not house cats. As an entrepreneur, as a woman-owned business, you eat what you kill, okay? You are not a house cat. You do not get fed by your owner every day. You are a cougar going out into the woods and hunting down game in order to feed yourself and your family. This is especially true of women-owned businesses who bootstrap their growth. It's really interesting. Recently, as the markets and the economy started to suffer and tumble, you saw all these venture-backed tech companies doing mass layoffs. And one of the things, that I see is when companies get a lot of money, their managers can become like house cats. They're just getting used to being fed with this money. Versus entrepreneurs like you and I, we fund our growth through our own cash flow. So there's a huge difference. We cannot tolerate a lack of performance because it'll drive down our profits and we'll grow broke. From a hiring perspective, from a team perspective, you really want to think about this, that you want to hire cougars. You want to hire people who are doers, who have a sense of urgency, who are able to roll with you as a small business owner as you go out and eat what you kill. And obviously, not everybody has to have those qualities to the same extent that you have, But I have really seen again and again and personally experienced when you hire someone who is much more better suited to that sort of more corporate environment, it can be really difficult in your company. I can remember this really painful lesson. So I hired an awesome person once who had been a career sort of being a manager inside larger organizations. And that sort of experience was very exciting to me. I knew that I wanted to have that kind of experience. I thought it could be a huge asset. But the problem was that she couldn't adjust to our speed and to the sense of urgency and to this thing in small businesses, which are you are building the plane as you fly it. Right? Like you have to be able to build and fly at the same time, which is a very specific type of skill set and way of being. Meanwhile, I as a leader lacked the experience and skill to be able to not only have and develop a clear ROI plan for her role, but also really communicate to her, hey, here's what you need to do. Here's what I expect week by week by week for you to be successful in this role. So it was those two things coming together ultimately ended up in her not being a fit for the role and for us. And it was a painful lesson. And also I'm so grateful for that lesson because I really learned a lot about how to be a much stronger leader and manager. So hire cougars, not house cats. Rule number 4, this is the most technical one. It is to calculate your labor efficiency ratio and monitor it monthly. If you are a business coach, as I am, to service-based businesses, you must understand labor efficiency ratios. If you have a service-based business where you have employees, you must understand what labor efficiency ratio is, because this basically tells you, hey, is your team winning? Are you winning as a leader of this team? So labor efficiency ratio is this. You take your gross margin and you divide it by your labor costs. Okay. And that gives you a ratio. And for most small businesses, that number is going to be between 1 and 2. Let me walk you through this. So you're going to take out your profit and loss statement, your P&L, and you're going to take a look at the line that says gross profit. And that gross profit is usually your total sales, take away cost of goods sold. So that's the number that you're looking for. And then you're going to divide that by your labor costs. And what this gives you, again, it's usually going to be a number between 1 and 2 for most small business owners. And this is telling you, so let's say your number is 1.5. What this number tells you is that for every dollar of labor you spend, you are bringing in $1.50 of gross profit. Okay? So that's a really important number. What we want, ideally, is for you to have that number at 2 or above. And when it's at 2 or above, this is going to allow you to cover your labor costs and the other expenses in your business and also be profitable. Okay? Now, there's so much, like I get super excited about this stuff, but this is really, really helpful because so for me, I look at this every single month. I look at it every single month. And here's what I know to be true. If you make a new hire, so let's say you hire a new executive assistant, or you hire a customer experience manager, or you hire a consultant to offer, a copywriter to deliver the service. When you make that hire, your labor efficiency will probably go down for the next month, and maybe 2 months or even 3 months. And that's because there's a learning curve when people step into your organization. People don't just step in and start driving results. And very often, the more, there's certain types of roles where you'll bring them in and it could take months because of the complex nature of what they're doing. It could be quite a few months before they are really able to drive gross profit in relation to their salary. And the thing is, when you know that and you're comfortable with that and you're prepared for it, it's different versus hiring somebody, which I see a lot of new, CEOs and entrepreneurs who are new to team building. They expect that the minute they hire somebody, basically within 2 weeks, this person is helping them drive profit. And yes, that can absolutely happen. And there's no reason in not holding out hope for that. But usually what happens is labor efficiency goes down because they're just getting used to things. They can't quite get in and be a baller yet and drive results. But as a leader, you need to know that, and you need to understand every time I make an investment like this, my labor efficiency is going to go down, my profits are going to go down, and I need to manage well in order to drive those things back up. And so when I think about like that example I was sharing with you before, so I bring in this person who had worked inside a large organization, like the role, it was just completely different way of working. And at that time in my business, it was a newer business. I'd had staff, full-time staff for sure, but they were all doers. And so to bring in this role, what was happening is that I am paying a fairly hefty salary and we are not driving growth. And I could basically afford to do that for like 2 months, but not longer. Right. And so that didn't work. So it was driving labor efficiency down. I could see that happening and that had to go. Couldn't sustain, the business could not sustain it. So when you start to understand labor efficiency and you start to measure it and monitor it consistently, you will naturally, start to do things that help you drive that up. So you'll start to think to yourself, okay, just took on this overhead of a salary. How do I make sure that I'm getting a return on this and driving profit? And you are a smart entrepreneur. You're going to start to put 2 and 2 together and start to make adjustments. Next rule is to fire fast. Firing people and terminating people is it's the toughest, one of the toughest sides of business. But I want you to think about, this scenario that I've experienced, and maybe you can relate to it. So I remember in the past, I've hired and had, for years now, I've had team members for years and years. And I can remember hiring somebody and really liked her. She was really skilled, but she actually was not skilled and was not delivering what I needed her to do and what the business needed her to do. And so she wasn't really delivering results, but I liked her and our colleagues liked her. And so we were sort of a collegial, friendly, family type atmosphere. And I kept her around for longer than I should have. And again, because she wasn't driving up, because she was driving down labor efficiency, she wasn't able to drive profit. And so that was costing the business money each and every month versus growing the business. So maybe you can relate to that. I think for a lot of women-owned businesses, one of our gifts is our ability to create a welcoming atmosphere for our team. One of the challenges that can happen is when you are friends with your team, which is totally fine, but you are not wearing your hat of CEO and leader. Okay. And you are not firing fast enough. And the way that you do this is to be very specific. Again, if we go back to tip number 2, which is to map an ROI plan for each employee. When you do that, the next layer of that is to really know, hey, what does it take to win every week? Like, you got to be good to get on the team. You need to be great to stay on the team. And this is what great looks like for you in this role. And when that's in place, now you can tell, and they can tell, are they winning or not winning? And if you stack up enough weeks of not winning, and should never be more than 8, right? 8 weeks of not winning, then both of you guys know this is not an effective working relationship and it's time to terminate this person, right? And that sounds like more of a hard and fast rule, but I'm sharing, what I see is a lot of women entrepreneurs keep people around way too long because they're not specific and you get caught in the friend trap. So what I have found is that you really want to think carefully about what a person's first 90 days looks like, and you have to take that probationary period very seriously. Otherwise, you get into that friend zone and it's really hard to do anything about it, right? Well, it actually is not hard to do anything about it, but you will end up keeping people for 6, 8, 12 months longer than you should. And what you will find out is that when you keep an average performer, they will drag down the performance of the high performers, and the high performers won't always know it. Usually when you let somebody go who is an average or poor performer, even though they may be a fabulous human, and in another organization they could be a super high performer, you will start to see that the rest of your team, once you make that decision and that person is gone, the rest of your team steps up and their performance naturally goes up. So, Again, you don't want to carry people who are not helping your business. And if you're doing that, it's not their fault. It's usually your fault because you haven't been clear about what it means to win inside your organization. You haven't been specific about what they need to do to stay on the team and help you win. And again, letting go of people is one of the most unpleasant sides of business, but it must get done. Because if you can't fire people, you end up inflicting them on others who are powerless to do anything about it. There you go. There are the 5 rules for growing a team without going broke. You know, building a team is an essential part of scaling from 200K to 2 million. And there are definitely solopreneurs out there who build $1 million businesses and have just themselves. And usually you're going to see this in terms of content creators. So this is where we normally see this. It's a content creator. They're great at building an audience on LinkedIn. They get people over to their blog and they sell passive courses or a newsletter or whatever. So that's one example that we'll see quite a bit of. Another thing in this group that we'll see is like very highly specialized consultants who are at a very, very specific niche. So I'm not saying that you have to have a team to scale from 200K to 2 million, but I am saying that you mostly do. You generally do. And so your ability to not only build a team, but to build that skill of growing a team without going broke, it's a critical skill for you as you are making this transition. And I would say the place that this really comes to the fore is generally when you start doing over 25 to 30K a month. At 25 to 30K per month, this is where you are going to start to see these challenges crop up. And this is where you're really going to want to master these skills. And again, I think there's a lot of sort of soft skill training around being a good leader and manager. But what's missing for many women-owned businesses is that it's not linking back to how you actually pay for these amazing humans and make more profit, right? Because you want to do both. You want to pay their salary and make more profit because they're there. I hope this episode helped you. If you want to take it further and get more hands-on help, I really encourage you just to kind of take the simple step of connecting with me personally at Eleanor Beaton on LinkedIn or Instagram. Tell me you listened to this episode and that you'd like to explore more support around it. And then we could have a conversation to see if there's a fit. It's pretty easy. Thanks so much for listening. And I can't wait to get you back here on next week's episode of Woman Owned.